All right, welcome back into the College Football Corner. It's week 14, and it's Randy and Fletch in W. Go to www.w.gg, order your stuff, type in FE Network, get 10% off, and enjoy. It's a very awesome energy drink, gives no jitters whatsoever, and keeps you going so you can crush it all day, just like all our favorite football teams do. So we had some games last week. Probably the most uneventful week of football, maybe in the last couple of years. Just no drama, no major upsets. Wisconsin maybe was a major upset, but it was kind of a upset with no meaning, if you will. Penn State surging a little bit, but nothing really
What
moving the
about
needle.
didn't Georgia Tech get beat?
Georgia Tech did get beat. Pitt put a pounded on them. There's no
Yeah,
doubt. A lot of
yeah.
people were calling for that though, but they've been calling for Georgia Tech for a few weeks now because their defense is just porous and they just keep
hmm
inking out games, but not in that one. And I think that killed them for the ACC championship game, unless some really freaky stuff happens, which would probably kill them for the CFP because they're not figuring a second ACC team will get into the CFP. If I think that's right,
Right.
so that was a little. I feel bad for them. Tough, gritty team, but when you play that style of football, it's doing live and die with Haynes King, and the defense just couldn't pit really right out of the gate. They were just
hmm
Johnny on the spot. They got another one this week, hosting Miami Hurricanes, which is something we'll talk about for sure because the whole Miami thing is just really interesting. There's so many levels to it, but I mean, I say let's just get into it. As we talk, we'll probably hit on games from last week. But there's not a whole lot to talk about from last week. But with Miami, I got I have their screen to share, and forgot to do that, so I'll do that now. And as you can see, they are at 12.
hmm
And here's Miami sitting at two losses to when Louisville beat them. Louisville was a very good team, and they were ranked, and their quarterback was healthy. Both their running backs, they've lost everybody in their key positions, which is why they're dropping games. So kind of like a Florida State when they lost their quarterback a couple years ago. They're not the same team.
Right.
So should Miami get docked for how a team is playing now versus when they played them? And then their other loss is to Virginia. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So which is a really good team as well in the ACC. And then here's Notre Dame with two losses, tight games. One's to Miami, and one is to A&M. And they're surging along. There's no doubt they're playing great football. And of course, Notre Dame's up there at 8,
Well,
sitting pretty.
that was also in the first 3 weeks of the season too.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was all early. So some of the what we've heard over the years is when you get down to these last weeks, they start looking at stuff, and they say, well, who did you play in the non-conference? Well, they played Notre Dame, and they played and they beat them, and they also played I think somebody else. So it's like if they hadn't played Notre Dame, they could have played a cream puff and won that game and only have one loss. So it's like, are they getting penalized? There's so many levels to it because I do believe watching just the eyeball, I think Notre Dame is a better team right now. But should that matter to keep Miami out of it? Not that I mean, Miami in their own conference is having all kinds of issues. That conference is so upside down. They lost two games, both of them in conference, which means they won all their non-conference games. So here we got. I personally think because Miami has Pitt today or tomorrow or Saturday, which is a ranked team. They just beat Virginia Tech, which is was not no big deal. Tech's not having a great year.
Right.
They beat them good though. So they got Pitt. If they Pitt would be their third team that was ranked in the AP, and of course they're ranked in this now. Pitt and Virginia both jumped up into the CFP last week. Pitt was in, out, in again. So it just if they win again this time, what do they do with them? I mean, personally, just between you and me, who's listening, I think Miami would beat BYU. What do you think?
Well, we keep saying it every week. Uh, I would think so, but every time I watch BYU, I'm like, well, you know, they just keep winning. I watched them pretty close last week. Solid defense, and the quarterback, you got to be able to stop him because he can throw, but he was also a running back, so he
Right.
every time we say, yeah, this is going to be the week, BYU is not what they are portrayed, or whatever you want to say it, but they prove me wrong every week, so I'm almost a little reluctant to say that.
So see, my whole point is when we start, anybody starts saying, hey, "Well, I think this team would beat this team," and I think they would play. Then you get into a whole lot of just opinions and conjectures. So you really got to rely on the data points. And the data point is Miami played them head to head and beat them. If they got the same record, man, I think they should be ahead of them. That's kind of the only. Why? Otherwise, the potential is the team stop playing tough games in the beginning of the season or at
Oh
all in
yeah,
non-conference
right,
because what good is it going to do them?
right.
So, you know, do I think Notre Dame is a great team? Yeah, and I'm not saying they shouldn't be. I just think Miami should be above Notre Dame. And because we're about to get a whole host of two-loss teams, and it's going to be really interesting. And I really think the way things look, Miami is going to be that one sitting number one out. When you look at all as it all, shakes out. Because I was looking at it here. Alabama, they got two losses. They just have the Iron Bowl. It's a rivalry game. If they survive that game, they're playing for the SEC championship. Now, if they lose that SEC championship, should that loss go against them? I don't think it should because it's an extra game that somebody like a Oklahoma or who beat anybody, didn't play. So that's another data point that's just going to be interesting. So it almost like sometimes, depending on who you are, you don't want to play the conference championship game necessarily. But so and we're just talking. SEC alone, Texas Tech is way up there with one loss. If BYU goes in and beats them, how far does that drop Texas Tech? Just because BYU's 11. Look how far some of the other teams dropped this past week. Georgia Tech went way down. So Oregon I think should be sitting fine, but they have talked about if Oregon gets beat by Washington, how far are they gonna drop? Because
Right.
Washington good team, but not as good. It's because they just beat USC, who was a ranked team last week. Nice win too. Then there's Ole Miss if they lose the Egg Bowl. Oklahoma is playing, I think, 10. No, Vanderbilt's playing Tennessee. Oklahoma's
They
playing
LSU.
LSU. Yeah, which is losable. I don't think they're gonna lose, but you just never know. There's a whole lot sitting in there. A lot of it's got SEC footprints on it, but it does affect some outliers in the Big Ten as well as the Big 12 and even the ACC. So they're going to have. It's almost a really good. Although I want them to stay at 12, it's like a good thing for them to look at. Go, we need to get 16 in here because look at all these extra teams that we don't even know what to deal with. And they're going to have that no matter how many teams you go out. There's always going to be the teams that can argue about it. So,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I
Well,
go ahead.
well, and the thing about that is, like you said, you look at the body of work overall that these teams have accomplished over the season. But it's also when it comes down to the very end, it's about the 12 best teams. My
Right.
opinion. It's about the 12 best teams. The 12 best teams now. Not necessarily the 12 best teams that in week 3, week 5. The
Yep.
best. And Notre Dame has certainly proven to be, you know, are they better than Miami right now? I think they are.
I think they are too.
But
I don't want to keep them out. I just
yeah,
think
yeah, they did lose to Miami,
right.
so and we've talked head to head. It's got to matter, something. But there's so many, and like you were saying, there's so many levels to it. That's going on. Injuries, key players out.
Yeah.
Uh, all these things come into play. And the committee last year at the very end jumbled it up a little bit, and all of a sudden we had a couple teams on the outside looking
Yep.
in that we thought would probably be in that top 12.
Right. Right.
Very a little bit controversial in that 13th or 14th team would, and we're not going to get away from that this year. Certainly this year it's even going to be more muddied than what it was. It's not going to be one or two teams, very possibly going to be three, four, maybe even five teams that
Hmm.
has a legitimate argument for that, being in that 11th, 12th spot.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, the committee has jumbled that up on us at the very last minute, which, is I didn't really understand some of it that they do. You can't, okay, this is the rankings, and then at the very end, well, we switched these two because of this. Well, why didn't you switch them 3 weeks?
3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, like you said, so many layers to not just Miami, but the whole committee thing with of how they got them ranked
Yep.
is and then they come out, well, we did this because of that, and we did that because of this, and sometimes I'm like, hey, I don't always get exactly where they're coming from on some of that stuff, but we're at the mercy of the committee for putting in the top 12 teams. So there's we certainly have our opinion of who they should be, and we
Right.
should actually be on the committee.
Yeah.
Um, you,
Exactly.
you know, you actually got football guys that are on the committee.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And
They
not
don't have all football
athletic
people on
directors
the
from
yeah.
certain schools, because there's bias in there. There's almost bias in just about anything. Now, I did find the what if the BCS were going down 12.
Yeah.
Somebody does it on what used to be Twitter X,
Hmm.
and I follow them, and it's almost exactly what the CFP poll is. At least the first, I think, 7 or 8, or note for note. I was a little surprised the BCS had Ohio State #1, honestly, but they do. But when you get into where Miami is, 8, 9, and all that, there's
Yeah.
like one spot difference, and then down lower in the teens, there's other teams up there that aren't in the CFP and vice versa. So it's not all that much different than what the computers are saying. So I think Miami's just 1 or 2 spots higher in the BCS, which kind of gets them closer to being in. And make no mistake, Miami can go out and get killed by Pitt, and this is all non for naught. You know what I mean?
Oh well, there's a few games. Well, not
Yeah,
just a few. There's several games this weekend that are you know certainly has the possibility of knocking some of these teams clean out of this whole conversation.
yeah,
There's 3 or 4 teams that could get knocked out of it and change
yeah,
the whole landscape of this whole thing.
yeah. There's no doubt that this coming weekend's not going to be like last weekend, where it's just the favorites just are winning like crazy. All these rivalries, all these tight games, these either conference rivalries like you got Ohio State, Michigan, or you got Georgia and Tennessee, I think, are playing each
No,
other.
Georgia, and Georgia Tech,
Georgia Tech, I'm sorry, yeah, Georgia Tech, South Carolina, and Clemson. The Iron Bowl. There's Texas
Texas
and Texas
A&M.
A&M. There's a
Yep.
lot of them that are just going to play a role, especially some of the ones we just talked about. Even if Georgia Tech is able to knock out Georgia, they're not going to knock them out, but it's going to move them probably.
Well,
I wouldn't think a whole lot. It depends on how they play the game. They're not going to blow them out. That's impossible to really think that Georgia Tech's going to blow out Georgia. If they win, it's going to be a field goal or something. But yeah, if Alabama doesn't win the Iron Bowl, that's going to be interesting.
they're out. They're out.
They probably are, with the exception of no, yeah, they wouldn't be in the SEC game.
Yeah,
That'd
they're
be
out.
that'd be 2 years in a row that they've lost. Like last year, they lost to Oklahoma. The second last week, I believe it was, because they played Iron Bowl the last week of the season. So maybe Kalen DeBoer going to Penn State will become a real thing.
Well, here's, let's let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
Some of the matchups that we're going to have that, you know, if we look at Ohio State, Michigan, of course, Ohio State fans, it's really big to them because Michigan now won 4 in a row, or
Yep.
whatever it's been. So it's a real big thing to them. But if Ohio State loses that game, they're still probably a good chance they're probably still in the top 4 and still get a bye. It doesn't hurt them much. They're definitely going to be in the playoffs, win or lose. And then, I'm going to use these 2 examples because you're an Ohio State fan. I'm an Alabama fan. So, Ohio State's in regardless of what happens. Alabama, Auburn is, it doesn't mean squat to Auburn. They have 5 losses, 6 losses. But, Alabama's sitting there with 2 losses. This puts them out, knocks them out of the SEC championship.
Right.
Gives them 3 losses, puts them outside the 12. Probably knocks them back to 15. To be honest with you, you lose to an unranked uh, Auburn team, but
Yep.
so they have way much more to play for. But the problem is this, and I talked about this in the Oklahoma game. The week before, this is another bad matchup for Alabama. Because if you look at Auburn, okay, 5 losses, 6 losses, whatever it is, look at their losses. One score to Georgia, which was
Yep.
a questionable fumble at the goal line. They
Right.
actually, they very well could have won that game.
Mm-hmm.
One score to Georgia, one score to Texas A&M. I mean, nobody's other. They didn't have a good game against Missouri, but nobody is coming in and blowing out Auburn.
Right.
I mean, Auburn's game. If you look at man, they got 5, 6 losses, and they could very easily have 4 more wins on that resume because their defense is very strong. Much like Oklahoma, very strong. Got after Ty Simpson, pushed him. So this is another bad matchup for Alabama. I mean, they wouldn't be surprised at all at the end of that if Auburn's standing taller than Alabama is, just because of the way things are and the defense and the matchups and all that stuff, just not really favorable for Alabama.
And is that at Jordan here?
That is at night.
Jordan. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's at
Yeah.
Jordan Hare
Wow.
at night. Alabama at Jordan Hare. The last 10 games or whatever, they're like 3-7.
Man.
So I talked about that it's almost talking about the Oklahoma
Yeah.
Alabama game. Not a good matchup. History of it not in their favor, and and it's they haven't had a night game there for quite a while, and all of a sudden, a big strike against Alabama. They made it a night game, and
Oh.
it's the first night game there since like 2014.
Wow.
But so Alabama hasn't done well at Jordan Hare. Auburn gets a night game. The Iron Bowl. Arguably one of the biggest
Under the lights.
rivalries. Yeah, rivalry that there is. So
Yeah.
that game. You got to circle that game because playoff implications there for somebody to get into that top 12 is certainly lies on how Alabama plays and if they can perform in that environment against a really good defense.
Yeah. I mean, heaven forbid if Alabama doesn't win that game, that opens the door for like a Miami if they win, and maybe whomever else, depending on how the things shake out. There's no doubt. Ohio State, Michigan. It's on the road at Michigan. I don't know if you've seen the forecast, but they're calling for some snow and super cold weather and wind.
Yep.
That negates passing game. I mean, that kind of brings everybody into one thing: who's going to run the football. And it's not necessarily Ohio State's strong suit running the football. It's definitely Michigan's strong suit. So it's going to come down to the trenches and the defenses and the turnovers and the mistakes.
Well,
And
yeah.
anybody can win that game. Now, granted, I do agree. If Ohio State loses that game, they're still getting in. If they would have made it to, if they make it to the Big Ten game and lose to Indiana in the non-blowout, I think they stay in the top 4. But if they lose to Michigan, who's 15, I think they go down to the second tier and host a game. I think they would move.
Out of the top 4.
Yeah, I think if, let's say, Indiana wins against whomever, which would probably be Michigan or Oregon,
Right.
and so if Indiana wins, if Georgia beats A&M, they're all going to move. Everybody would move up 1 because Ohio State would be there. So I think Georgia slides up from 5 to 4, and the rest move up, and then Ohio State drops down. But I mean, who knows? Because there's so many other teams involved there, so many other possibilities. We may have crazy pandemonium. All the crazy games may go the wrong way, so to speak. As far as Alabama loses, Ohio State loses, Miami loses. I mean,
Well,
who knows?
Texas A&M. That like we were saying earlier, and I don't mean to count Michigan completely out.
Right.
Depending on what happens this weekend, if they do win that game, they would have an arguable if a 3-loss team was going to get in.
If Yeah, if they win, they're a 2-loss team. They
Right.
jump
Exactly.
right up into the mix, and
Yeah.
so then you got, okay, are they better than Miami? That's a question that they're going to have to ask
Well,
if they win that game.
if you just beat the number one team in the country,
That's best. That's the best win
yeah.
in the season because you beat number one, regardless of who you beat.
Right.
Being the only team beat number one, best win in the season. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And it's the
Exactly.
last
So
game you played. So yeah, there's it's so
yeah,
crazy.
the two teams. So Michigan has a lot to play for. I
Oh
said
yeah,
I talked earlier about Ohio State. It doesn't matter if they win. It does matter for Michigan.
yeah,
It does matter for Texas against Texas A&M. Texas A&M and Ohio State they're going to be in the playoffs. Barring that the committee doesn't penalize you for playing in a conference championship and losing. It's gonna be interesting how they do that.
yeah. I that would be crazy if A&M and Ohio State, or if anybody in the top four make it to the championship game. That means they finish regular season undefeated. If they lose, it'd be hard to imagine them going completely out of the playoffs. That'd be nuts. But it could happen.
Well,
But
they would.
nuts.
Well, a team with if in fact it was their second loss, they're not going out of the playoffs.
Right, right.
As opposed to in Alabama getting that third loss, or Miami getting that third loss, or some of the other teams that are up there that in that 2-loss category that could get that third loss. I just it's going to be really really tough for a 3-loss team to get into that top 12.
Yeah, I think Texas would be it, and it's not going to happen. Like we've said for the last few weeks, if they're able to, if they get the third loss, there's too many other teams that are probably going to be even jumping them higher. Or they actually have the third loss. It's just not. I don't think it's going to happen. They would have to, because they're at 3 losses now. They would have to beat A&M, which
Yeah.
again could be the best win of the season. That's the top 3 team that's not been
Yep.
defeated if nobody else up there loses. But I don't think, and in a 3-loss team with that win, yeah, I think it might be still tough to get in, but you never know.
Yeah.
If they, because what they did on South Carolina was like they're done first half. To
Yeah.
wow, they're they just
Oh, you talking about Texas A&M? Yeah, that's a real
South Carolina.
Yeah, So that is that Texas A&M. That's another real interesting game. Um, people talking about Arch Manning has now put himself back up against as one of the elite quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff, and they're showing stats. They're going well, this is Arch Manning's stats. This is Julian Saying stats. This
Right.
is this is the guy from Texas A&M stats. This is Arch Manning stats, and and I'm like, oh, that's pretty. And then I realized, hang on a minute, we're adding stats to him last week against a horrible team,
Right.
cupcake game, whatever, for what, 6 touchdowns and 500 yards?
Right. Right.
I mean, talk about padding your stats to make it look better than what it really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the case with Arch Manning. I mean, he has improved. He has done better. He's played better. But that whole scenario of where they're trying to compare this against that and like that, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, So, if Julian Sayin plays UD and he
Yeah.
throws for 7 touchdowns and 600 yards, well,
Right. Right. Yeah. All that's very, circumstantial. There's no doubt.
Right, it
I
is.
do agree. I think Arts has looked better in the latter part of the season, but he's also in certain games against tougher teams. He's still shown that he needs more work. And there's nothing wrong with that. This dude is young. He's a kid still.
No, it is, right.
And people forget these people still need to be developed. Some of them are, Julian Saints having a great year, but he's not ready for the NFL. I don't know if he'll play NFL football from a size standpoint, but that doesn't really matter right now. He's not Superman great. He's a very good decision maker. He's got a quick release and he's accurate. That's his best
all-
stuff.
that's
And
all
that's
you
good
need in
stuff.
college.
Yeah, that's good stuff to have.
That
You
is.
know, but because when you get to the NFL, all of those windows get that much get that big, because
Well.
they're so fast up there. So yeah, he's really good, but by no means am I, there's so. I mean, we're not even talking about Texas Tech yet. They're just kind of sitting there going, "Hey, look, we only got one loss, and we
Well,
just
true.
beat." So it's like, and they beat the pants off of BYU when they played
Right.
them.
Yeah, well, they did.
Or so it's going to be really interesting. They're might be the sneaky team that's just going to surprise everybody once that CFP gets here and they start playing the better teams of the other conferences and they start whooping behinds and people are like, wow, this team's for real. Because I think they are for real. How for real, who knows? But they sure look good when you watch them play. There's
Well,
no doubt.
the thing about, and we've seen a little bit of this last year. The thing about Texas Tech that we automatically kind of you know question right away. How do you perform against the top defenses in the friggin' country? Not I mean, we're talking Ohio State, Oklahoma. Uh, Texas has a great defense.
Georgia.
Auburn has a great defense. How do you match up with guys like that? Because we're at the part of the season, and we've also defense wins championships, and we're at that point where defense is going to make a huge difference. Now we're going to
Yeah.
start seeing going into these conference championships and into the playoffs and stuff. We're going to start seeing how much defense really matters.
Oh, yeah.
Of how you can how you can shut these teams down just changes everything about it. I mean, Oklahoma gets after the quarterback. Ohio State, um,
Georgia.
Texas, Georgia,
Yeah.
and like I said, I keep throwing Auburn in there because the reason I keep doing that is because I went back and looked at the stats the last 2 days, and I'm like, oh, holy crap! They're not giving up a lot of yardage. They're not giving. They just offense has been not very good at all. But they started that young kid last week. The 18-year-old kid, but he's a big kid, 6'3",
Yeah.
225, 230, and I mean, he looked great. So, one of the other things, how do you prepare for that?
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, especially, if he's a guy that can run, that just
he can
gives you
run.
another dynamic. I mean, Jalen Milrow last year was not the best passer in the world, but man, when he put the feet on the turf,
Yeah,
I'm still watching him score against LSU in that game. I think he scored again. I mean, the guy was lights out. But
yeah,
yeah,
he couldn't hit. I mean, he could throw the deep ball and he could run. Other
right,
than that,
80 yards or
yeah,
run, and that's his
he
game.
was in. But
15-yard over the middle, forget
yeah,
it.
well, yeah, even the out patterns and all that
Right.
kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, lots of interesting things going on, and teams with a lot on the line.
Yep.
Michigan being one. Uh,
It's like you said, it's going to come down to a lot of matchups,
Correct.
and then and when you face to face with a team that you don't match up all that well with, what are you going to do? I mean, how are you going to get through that game? Mud through it, change your, change your scheme, do something to give yourself the favor, put people in position to where they're getting mismatches. It's chess between the coordinators at that point, and then it's
It
the
is.
guys in the trenches.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, when we get those matchups, it's it comes down. We always say who's going to control the line of scrimmage and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, man, there's just a lot going on.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm nervous as all get out. As an Ohio State fan, do I want? Yes, it goes without saying. I want Ohio State to win the game whenever they play that game.
Yeah,
I'm old enough to know and remember living through the Cooper years that losing four in a row is not the end of the earth like some of this younger generation thinks. We won 8 in a row. And up until the last 4 years, we had only lost, I think, 3 times since the year 2000 until this last 4-game winning streak,
yeah,
losing streak. So it's not the end of the world, especially when we're winning the vast majority of all our other games. So I trust me, it stinks. I hate it, but man, if we lose the game, I really don't want to hear, and I know we will, the Fire Day stuff because he's a great coach. They've accomplished a lot. He's built a great program, taken over for Urban, changed his culture to his culture, and got his team doing things good. It's just so I want him to win that game one, because I always wanted to win it, and two, I want the Heat to get off the day so we can just not have that anymore.
Well, see,
But
big difference in my opinion on that. See, last year they lost that game, and we've talked about it a few times. Going into that playoffs, I mean, he was on the hot seat right away. They
oh
get
yeah,
beat. Tennessee comes in and knocks him off. He's not the coach. They
well I agree.
they probably get rid of him. So now he has that national championship.
Yep.
I mean, people seen it. Oh man, your team looked terrible against Michigan, but look what you did coming through here. So going into this year, if Michigan wins, I don't think they have a chance in heck personally. But if Michigan wins, of course there's going to be a little bit of uprising and people are going to be jabbering and all that kind
It's
of
a good
stuff.
thing they're on the road.
But but for the most part, they're going to say, okay, what happens next?
Right.
What happens next? We already know we can come back and win the championship. Now, I mean, it's kind of now if he does lose that game and gets beat by Indiana
Or
and gets beat in the CFP, I mean that's a whole nother conversation. But right now, I think he's got himself a bye, even if they lose that game, on how things go moving forward.
yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, the championship saved his job. There's no doubt. The Tennessee game, I should say, saved his job. If he made it all the way and lost, I don't know exactly. But the Tennessee game, if he would have lost that and looked bad,
Oh,
he's
it would have
done. He
been
was
bad,
absolutely
yeah.
done. There's no doubt because I for the first time rewatched last year's game last night. Just to, the football in an hour, that kind of thing. I
Well,
didn't have 3 hours for it.
Michigan, Ohio
Yeah,
State. Okay.
yeah, and basically our defense held them to 13 points, which is you would be happy with anytime you hold somebody's team. They
Absolutely.
were not a good team last year. They were 6-5 coming into that game. They're 8-2 coming into this game, so they're a better team this year. But they're almost the same type of team. Great in the trenches, great defense, and they run the football. And their passing game isn't that great, but their quarterback is a running quarterback versus the guy last year. But last year we shot ourselves in the foot. They went down to the field, got into the 2 yard line, and we held them on
Oh yeah.
fourth down, turned them over. Next play, Howard throws a pick. It goes right to the 2 yard line. Next play, the guy goes in. So we gave him that one. We threw another interception that gave him a field goal. And then we shot ourselves in the foot so much, and there was a lot of situationally bad calling. But I mean, I remember watching. I mean, touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith. I was like, I remember thinking, oh yeah. Now I'm thinking we're going to win this game. But I was remembering from last year's stuff. So the wrongs that were righted, or whatever happened from then on, man, they played like a team on a mission, and nobody was going to stop them.
You're right.
This year's a completely different year. Who knows what's going to happen? And I think at least on paper, there's a lot better teams heading into this CFB than there seems to be for last year. I think Texas Tech's great, Ohio State's great, A&M's great, Georgia's great. If Alabama gets in there, they're tough to play against. They got some holes. Oklahoma's the same way, but heck of a defense. Indiana's great. If I didn't say them, I think Oregon's a tough out. It's going to be crazy this year. It's going to be interesting. It really is. And then those other teams, Notre Dame, I think is better than they were last year. So I mean,
Yeah.
hands
Yeah,
down.
and
So
they beat Georgia.
yeah,
Okay, there's I got sidetracked there for a minute. Sorry about
no
that.
problem.
The
But I just think the field this year for the
oh
CFP
yes, yeah,
should be a much deeper field of teams that really legit. Especially the way last year happened and all four of the teams on byes lost. I really
that's-
don't see that this year.
that's what I'm going to say. The format's
Okay.
change.
Right,
That's what I was going to say. The format's changed. You don't have those teams getting buys that should have never had buys.
right.
You're the number 16, number whatever up there in that top four having a buy while another team's playing that extra game.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
And going back to these conference championship games, if in fact, somebody gets penalized for losing a championship game, there's no reason to have them.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, there's really not. If you're going, let's just say Alabama beats Auburn, goes and plays Texas A&M or Georgia or whatever, loses that game, gets their third loss, and the committee decides, oh, that's a third loss, and then we're going to back them out of that. Well, I mean, why would you ever want to play in a conference championship against one of the top four teams in the country,
right.
in that case,
Oh yeah.
to get knocked out of the playoffs?
Especially when you've played great conference You're in the SEC is a great league, so therefore you've played great teams all year long for the most part.
Yeah, and
So
look at
yeah,
strength of schedule and all that kind of stuff. But
it's a big deal.
oh yeah, that's it's huge, and we can't be shocked if that happens.
No, I don't think it should happen, but I don't disagree that we can't find it shocking because the very first year of the four team CFP, Ohio State jumped like
Up two teams.
TCU and somebody else right in that last weekend of the conference championships because they won 59-0.
Yep.
Nobody was really expecting them to get in, and they got in fourth, and that was a major complaining from TCU. And then Ohio State goes and wins the whole thing. That doesn't mean they did it right. That was the best team in the nation. No, Ohio State was hot. They got hot against Wisconsin, 59-0, and then they a great game against Alabama that went back and forth. And whoever won that game was going to beat Oregon, in my opinion.
Well, that 2014 season for Ohio State was, I've always said this, it was the perfect storm.
Yeah,
perfect storm for Ohio State. I mean, Utah. I think everything went their way from them jumping two teams, getting in that spot, to the way the games went. On a short and one, a guy breaks one for 75. I mean, it was the perfect storm for them to go through three quarterbacks and and still end up in a good situation. But I mean, that's the way it goes. Have things go your way and peak at the right time, and there you go. Of course, we're in a different.
Well, yeah, it's
a little bit.
That's eons ago.
Yeah.
The one thing this makes me think of going into this CFP second year to 12 and all that. I haven't seen. Nobody has seen actually the complete diagram of what the Big Ten has in their mind of a 2014 playoff. And I don't know how a 2014 playoff can work at all and have a regular season. So it really seems like it's way too much to me. But I like the idea of the conferences have their own mini 14 playoff, what do you want to call it? Their top 4 teams play each other to get into. In other words, instead of being picked by the committee, they play to get in the CFP and from within the conference. And then, so if the conferences have teams play to get in, that seems to me to be a lot better. Yeah, there's still going to be teams. There's always going to be teams that are left out, but at least they're playing to get in. So I like that aspect of that.
Yeah.
But,
one of the other things, but if they open it up to 16 teams, I think I figured out how they could make that work and stuff. But if they opened up beyond that, you're kind of getting into you're truly making it about football and about money.
Oh yeah.
Because one of the things this time of year for the college student, and these guys are college students. Is the finals. Getting through all your classes, getting that final done, getting to your Christmas break, winter break,
right.
whatever you want to call it. That plays right into that and kind of muddies all that up.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion. So now we're taking college football, which we're already seeing it change, and making it even more about just football and about money.
I completely agree. 16, it seems like it's got to be the limit if they go that far. Just because. And I'm thinking, man, how are we getting all these games in? We're bleeding into February. When's the season going to end? When's it going to begin? How many buys? Maybe get rid of a couple. Don't have a buy at all. Just have, straight seasons with no buys. They used to do that. So I don't know.
Well, one of the perfect things I was looking at. Okay, let's go to 16 teams. Let's go to 6. Let's just say 16 teams right now. Top 16. Like you said, the buys, no championship conference games. The following week, you're down to 8 teams.
Right.
Just like that, because 8 of them are going to be eliminated.
Right.
Now you're back on track to following it now. Give them an extra week off or whatever, and start that.
That makes a lot of sense. Instead of conference championship games,
right? Have an 18 playoff.
Right.
And even if you had some buys, even if you said, okay, we're still going to give the top 4 teams a bye, you still have all those. Say, what's that do? Put 12
right.
teams.
Right.
You'd still be down to 10,
mm-hmm.
which is 2 less than what you have now.
Right.
Which plays right into the same format that we're on now. So
they would have to get rid of the conference championship games.
Have to get rid of the conference championship, which I see that.
I think it's inevitable.
Oh man,
Yeah.
it's got to be. Why would you want to play in it?
Why would you want to play in it? And heaven forbid somebody gets hurt in it. Then all of a sudden you've played an extra game you really didn't need to play, and you lost a key guy like a quarterback or something. It's meaningless.
Exactly.
So, and
Yeah.
especially when you can turn right around and replace it with a playoff game, so the revenue is going to be there. It's just not going to be a conference championship game. It's going to be a playoff game. So,
Well, throwing it out there that you get that third loss, second loss, whatever it may be, throwing that out there, and the committee may or may not
right.
play into that. If somebody getting hurt. No, I mean, the list goes on and on of why not to play in that game.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean that's just what they've done. So, I think it's very important for the committee not to penalize those teams that play in those conference championships while you got everybody else, that maybe not as good, not ranked as high or whatever,
Yeah.
sitting back and watching on TV.
Yep, because
Um,
they're literally saying BYU, if they make it to the conference championship game with one loss and lose, they're going to be a two-loss team, and they're not going to put them in. And it's like, well, man, they're getting dinged because they're playing the Big 12. I'm not, again, are they one of the 12 best teams? Well, now we're just, what are you measuring? What are you talking about? I mean, so
right.
it's just a lot of weirdness. So yeah, having it on the field would be a lot better. And that's where, getting rid of conference championship, getting 16, and just having that, right after the season's over, that first week is 8 games, 16 teams battling out.
Yeah,
CFP
right.
starts.
And,
So
and
that's a
like that,
really good idea.
yeah, like I said, even if you have the top 4 bye teams, I mean, you're still, you're down to 10 teams, and
Yeah. Yep.
so I mean, you could make it work. However, I would just throw in numbers out there. I don't know the best
Right.
scenario, but it could certainly be done with 16 teams. It'd be tough to do it with any more than that.
Right. Right. Yeah, I remember. I don't know how many years ago it was when all of a sudden, we're celebrating 6-win seasons and going to bowl games. But it's kind of like, what are we doing here? But it used to be about winning and winning. Now it's about 500 mediocrity. I definitely don't want to see that happen. So I don't think at 16 it would. I think 16 would open up the door for 3-loss teams. Not all of them, but some of them
Well,
to
yeah,
be able to battle it out in that first round. So
yeah, absolutely, it would, and the problem is, with the bowl games, other than the playoffs, is hey, you watch those games and you turn them on and you're like, well, where's the star running back? Where's the star receiver? Where's the 3 defensive guys? Where's this? All these guys are setting out. I mean,
yeah,
we were just talking. Why are you going to chance getting hurt whenever you got the NFL coming up? The chance to make whatever money. And even I thought about this. And here's something for you to think about. Let's just say a junior. He's coming back next year. Now we're talking NIL money because he's one of the top guys.
right.
Do you set out a meaningless bowl game not to get hurt? So you can probably get more money than you could if you were drafted in the NFL. You see what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I mean,
it's-
why? Okay, why are you going to play against USC in the Tulip Bowl? Have a chance to get hurt when your NIL says $4 or $5 million.
Yeah, you break a leg, and all of a sudden you've lost some NIL. I mean,
That's
I'm sure in the contract there's all that kind of stuff's written in there. There's no doubt. So, yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's all consequential.
yeah. So I mean, to me, it gets more than just about the NFL. All of a sudden, it becomes really about money.
Yep.
For some of these guys sitting, and they are per se meaningless bowl games. I mean, I like watching them because I love college football, but they don't mean a whole lot other than it does give the universities money and stuff like that, but it's
Right.
not giving the money to a team like when they play their cupcake games or whatever.
Right.
A Mercer comes in and gets
Slam.
$2 million to help their program.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, you got to realize that's what those games are about. That don't mean that's
Oh,
why
yeah.
Ohio State plays OU and I
Mhm.
mean Ohio University and Toledo
Yeah.
and those kind of things. The money, sets their budget for the year. So
Oh yeah, for their whole athletic department sometimes.
well, exactly. But whenever you get into the bowl games, it's going to be the top 20 teams are probably the ones that's going to be playing in those bowl games.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it at length just in the last so many years. Once we started having lots of players opting out of these bowl games because they're holding out for the NFL. They don't want to do those bowl games. Like you said, we watch them, but they're just not as good. I mean, we watched a great Florida team. Everybody opt out except for the quarterback. We talked about this last week and other weeks. That Trask, and he just gets murdered by OU. He should have never played it because his draft stock dropped probably.
Oh,
You know?
it killed him. It cost him millions of dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, well, I don't know. Yeah, I know there's a cap on rookies when they come in, but still, I mean, it cost him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that makes it rough. So yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. Interesting weekend coming up. A lot of good matchups. A lot of big games. A lot of big games with playoff implications for teams. So yeah, it's going to get real interesting.
Oh yeah, yep. So yeah, USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, Ohio State, Michigan, the Iron Bowl, Texas A&M, Georgia Tech, South Carolina, and
You got the Egg
Clemson.
Bowl. You got the
Egg Bowl, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. It's just nonstop rivalry
Yeah.
all Saturday, which is the way it should be. So it's going to be a
Right.
lot of fun.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
we're going to enjoy it, and we got we see two more reveals after we got one this coming Tuesday, and then going into the championship weekend, the final reveal will be on Sunday. So
Right.
we'll be talking about those things as well. But we can still set the games up on Saturday if we want to talk about them.
Yep.
If we didn't waste too much time today doing that. Just any last minute, who knows what we'll look at to see what's going to happen this weekend. And
Right.
of course, a
Absolutely.
couple coaching things. UConn's Jim Moore Jr. is going to Colorado State, and somebody else, the guy from North Texas, is going to Oklahoma State, but he's going to finish out North Texas as a
Yeah. Right.
season and slight chance to get into CFP as the group of five. So
Yep.
they only got one loss. So
Right. Absolutely. Yep. So
all right,
yeah, it'll be exciting. I want everybody out there to have a happy Thanksgiving, enjoy family, and have a good meal and all that good stuff, and get ready for big matchups for the weekend.
yeah, stuff yourself full of bird. Don't worry about watching those NFL games tomorrow. They just take up too much of your time.
You don't need them.
So enjoy Thanksgiving and have a great Black Friday, whatever you do. And we will see you here Saturday morning to lock it all in for Rivalry Week.
Absolutely.
So,
Oh, there it is.
yeah, do all the, what do you call it? Do all the social media things, the bells, the whistle,
The
the
bells and
likes,
whistles, the
bells and
likes,
whistles,
the
likes, and the
subscribe.
subscribes. Yeah. And we will see you guys right here Saturday morning.